So if a gap for them is sales, they hire the best salesperson. If
Yep.
their gap for them is engineering, they hire the best CTO. If their gap for them is marketing, they hire the best growth person. If they're, whatever their gap might be, they surround themselves with the right talent that
Man.
can allow them to really focus on what they're really great at, which is really understanding the vision and how does their company overall disrupt the current status quo, and how are they able to quickly scale and go from nothing to $100 million a year business.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. Today, we're extremely excited to have Hamlet Azarian on our show. Hamlet is the founder and CEO of Azarian Growth Agency, as well as A Growth Academy. We met a while ago. He told me some incredible things he's done in the growth hacking space. So I'm very thrilled to have you on here. Thank you so much for being here, Hamlet.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Let's start with your history. Let's talk about your background. How you have a very fascinating combination of growth marketing, some data science knowledge, and you've been in the tech industry doing marketing for many years. How did you get to this point? What brought you to this point of your life? Tell me a little bit about your journey.
No, of course. So about 12 or 13 years ago, I was just transitioning from my career, and at this point, I was a buyer for Saks Fifth Avenue, and I'd also been working for Macy's. And I was seeing a huge evolution occurring, particularly online. Companies like Amazon were getting really big. Companies like Zappos were becoming dominant players, particularly related in e-commerce. And I wanted to take some of the elements that I had learned in retail and retail buying and see if I could transition my career, particularly to marketing. That went relatively smoothly, looking back on it. Obviously, a huge career change at the peak of your career and you're at the where you're starting on your earnings years. But it also gave me something that I was yearning for, which was I wanted to learn. And and I felt like where I was, the capacity of gathering new knowledge and learning new tools and new techniques was sort of not occurring. And I've always been a person of a balance between being analytical as well as being creative. And I was seeking that, and I constantly was. And when I fell into marketing, I fell in love with it. Fast forward now, I did SMB marketing, I did e-commerce marketing, but there was something that was always missing for me, and what was missing was the technology side of it. And I ended up meeting two gentlemen. They had just graduated out of HBS, Harvard Business School. It was Sean and Kenny Salas. And they had started a startup, and they wanted to go and focus on reaching Latino business owners, particularly first generation here in the US. And they wanted to develop a go-to-market playbook that was using some of the more latest techniques in growth marketing. At this point in my career, I'd worked with a large catalog company called Venue, which we had scaled from $1 to $10 million, but I still hadn't fully led a team. I was part of a team. And the combination of the two allowed me to begin what was the trajectory of what I do now, which is a very data-driven, scientifically based analysis, the figuring out strategies that work that is aligned with the product itself and what the demands for the market are.
And you brought up a very important point. You talked about data-driven analysis, data-driven approach to marketing. That seems extremely important because part of marketing feels disjointed and it feels fluffy, right? So companies are spending thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing and sometimes getting no response, right? Not getting the feedback because a lot of times it just feels disjointed. Tell me where data comes into to marketing and how do you utilize data and why is it important to doing marketing the right way?
Yeah, of course. And it's everywhere, honestly. So you have data from the beginning. And one of the things that we actively do with every client that we work with is we do this sort of strategy audit component of it. And what we will do is we will analyze using different tools. There's so many third-party tools available now. Tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush are just some for competitive research, and then there's others as well. We partner with a company called Ibis World, which provides analyst reports, and you can see what's happening overall with the industry. And this culmination of data allows you to really dig deeper and understand what the market is like today. Where is the consumer demand if it's on the BDC side? If it's on the B2B side, there's even how big is your total addressable market? How can you get a hold of your potential clients and so on and so forth? And with that, we're able to put together a strategy, but not just any basic strategy, but a really multi-channel strategy backed with financial modeling that shows what the investment needs to be in order for you even to be competitive. And sometimes what you get to is you're like, you know what? You're just not ready. Like this is too high a risk for you. This investment, every dollar we spend, we truly look at it as an investment, right? So the 10,000 you're going to spend in this campaign or the 25,000 you're going to spend in a campaign is probably better invested in this other one that has a better return on investment for you. And then once we've done this 2-month process, we're able to really zone in and then begin the real process. And this is, we run a bunch of micro experiments. We look at what ads people are reacting to, what are the value propositions that they're really centering on and addressing the pain points. How is the landing page itself, performing? Is it converting? Is it getting the desired action? After the landing page, are they actually going to the next phase? If you're B2B, are they getting on a phone call with a sales rep? Is the sales rep at that point qualifying them, saying that, yes, this is a marketing qualified lead, or is it a sales qualified lead? If it goes into the SQL section of it, are you able to close the deal? If you're not, why? What are the issues that came across? This is obviously on the B2B track. On the B2C track, it's much more self-serve. Where are they falling off in the funnel? Is it on the shopping cart, and so on and so forth.
Hamlet, how long does it typically take, if done right, to start seeing some results in the marketing spend? And what's a typical ROI expectation?
I wish that was an easy answer, but I'll give you exact examples from clients, right? Like this, I wish I could tell you it's always the same. It's you do A and B and this occurs. But Camino, the one I was telling you guys about earlier, it took us about 3 months. And it took us about 3 months to figure out a scalable Facebook strategy that also allowed us to learn what the product and the offer needed to be, to who our ideal customer persona was. And the combination of those 3 things led us to be able to scale that business. Literally at that point, we had no marketing, to be able to have offices in LA, Mexico City, as well as Colombia, and eventually raising upwards of $150 million, right? So that took 3 months. So 3 months of hard work led to that. Obviously, there was the strategy to take to that. There's other companies let's say on the SEO side of things where you can't really run ads. Those take a little bit longer. So there's categories where you just can't run Google ads, or you just can't run Facebook ads, and it's going to take you a while to build up your authority, and those could take anywhere between 6 months and 9 months. But once you kind of get there, you're able to see the results. And how do we know this? You can look at the prior companies in front of you and how long it took them, and what did they do when they were at your stage. So if you had no authority, you had no overall content, what were the phases that they went through, and how long did it take them? And if you replicate a similar strategy, but obviously that's unique to you, it should take similar time frame, but using more of some of the modern techniques, you're able to speed it up.
Nice. And what's a typical ROI someone should expect? If I have a $50,000 budget, what type of ROI? 4x, 10x? What should I expect from these campaigns?
It's what you want, honestly. So that's part of the growth model budgeting that you do. So we have a client that they're trying to run at a 4 return on ad spend, right? So if they put $1 in, they want to get $4 back. We're able for them to not only get to the 4, we've been able to get to 8, 9, and 12 for them. And part of that is because not only are we optimizing the campaign, we're also optimizing the conversion rates that go along with that. And because you're able to get such a higher return on ad spend, you might actually be walking business. So part of the conversation we have with them then is we come back and say, hey, I'm spending $1, getting you 8 back, but if I spend and do these new experiments that we can both learn from, I could potentially untap new markets for you. So you shouldn't just sit on your laurels, right? You should always, marketing is such a dynamic game now, especially online. If you become complacent, it's very easy for you to go from winning to losing in a very short period.
Sure. But you said something interesting. You said it depends on what you want. 4x, 10x. I mean, we want the most possible, right? Because it's expensive. What's a typical? Like, what should I budget?
It varies. And again, like I'll give you an e-commerce one where, and it's not what you budget, you got to run through the whole model, right? So you got to look at it and say, and then let me say how we do this. If you're a SaaS business, you're looking at LTV over CAC. And LTV is the lifetime value, typically done in a 12-month annual basis, and the CAC is the customer acquisition cost. If you're early stage, you want to try to get sort of anywhere between ideally an 8x LTV over CAC within a 12-year period. So that means if you do, just to make the math easy, if you do $8,000 in annual revenue, you want to spend at most $1,000 to bring that customer in. Okay. That will get you to a point where Series A investors will look at you with genuine interest and say, hey, you figured something out in your customer acquisition and your lifetime value of your customers. The other thing they will look at is the payback period. They will look at it and say, okay, great that you're able to do LTV or CAC over this, but how long does it actually take you to get the money back? Is it 9 months? Is it 3 months? Is it 5 months? Is it whatever it might be? The shorter that window, the better. So meaning if you're able to do it in 3 months, it's phenomenal, right? Like you're able to spend $1 and get that dollar back within 3 months. That means you only need a 90-day bridge in financing, which technically you can actually go find through different financing methods that could allow you to do this. So you actually don't need that much of my capital for marketing expenses. You're able to provide another source of capital that can do this for you. So that's just on that side. I could go into e-commerce too, but it really depends.
No, that was great. That was great advice for all the startups I work with and advise and invest in. How about, let's talk about B2B established service businesses, right? These are the ones that struggle the most with marketing because there's no guarantee, and the way that they get their business, the way they get to a certain point of their success is just through grassroots marketing, word of mouth, referrals, mushrooming. How do you step on it if you're a service business, B2B, or even a marketplace type of service business? How do you accelerate?
I love it. Let's talk about our B2B playbook. So I was just giving you our B2S playbook, right? So our SaaS playbook. So our B2B playbook revolves around, and usually most service businesses, the reason they've been able to grow from $0 to $1 million, it's been founder led. The founder is super dynamic, is an incredible operator, might be a really good salesperson, and has built a strong enough network that's bringing him a decent amount of referrals that gets him roughly to close to about the 1 million to 1.2, 1.5, maybe even $3 million barrier. But for them to be able to scale up from that point, from the 3 to 10 million, they need to go from being founder-led, and sometimes it might be sales-led, sometimes it might be marketing-led, sometimes it might be a balance of the two. And in order for them to be able to do that, they need to be able to figure out a way to get a decent pipeline constantly coming in. And usually what we've noticed on the B2B side is how do you enable and superhumanize what they've been able to do across their whole sales team. How do we do that? Okay. So the way we do that, there's incredible tools out in the marketplace now. These are some of the most cutting edge. They're signal-based cold outreach tools. And the way you're able to do that today as it stands is you can use a tool like Clay, C-L-A-Y. And what Clay does is it's a data enrichment platform, and it's able to listen for things like job openings. I'm going to talk about HireCloud right now. So if you could quickly see what companies are actually hiring, what roles and positions are they hiring for, and so on and so forth, and you can create this table or this workflow that's constantly updating the most latest current data points that are coming in. Based off of that, then you can start building out personas, and you can start putting in different hiring managers from the actual VP level, any level. It will automatically go into LinkedIn and pull out all of the contact information for you. Then you can tap into your OpenAI API endpoints, and you can start having it read their LinkedIn summary, have it read their company profile, and from that, then you can start creating different little snippets that you're going to use for which is going to be the next phase. And what the next phase is, then you're going to tap into one of the there's a new phase of cold outreach tools that are coming out. The one that we love is called Smart Lead, which allows you to send cold email at scale, but it controls it, but to ensure that it gets into inbox and you get deliverability. So what that now allows you to do is, instead of sending 100 emails all at once, you send one email in a little small drip sequence. Based off of the data enrichment you did on Clay, you're able to uniquely write to someone. So you're able to say, hey, hi Avetis, I noticed that you, and this is an example of, this could be completely personalized, by the way. Hey, hi Avetis, I noticed that you are actively hiring for this role, mentioning the role. I've read the job description. It seems like you're looking for this type of person. Well, let me tell you a little bit about what we do. I'm from a hiring cloud. We hire all, and we have X amount of candidates already that could potentially fit this particular role. Here's an example of one. Would you like to set up a quick call, and I can give you examples of all the others that I have. Something that can be fully automated, looking at every single job posting.
And Hamlet, do you think it's funny? I just literally had this conversation with a biz dev engineer, he called himself, through a partner company. Basically, they create this, they build this for you, right? All of this workflow, because more and more you're going to have to automate things. More and more you have to inject AI into the business, because people are challenging and sometimes not available and not always effective, right? Or sometimes too low volume. So this was a great example. So there's a lot of great tools, but you have to integrate them. Is this something your agency actually does for organizations?
We do, yeah. So the way we do this is we integrate by first doing a 1 to 2 month sort of like strategy deep dive into what your current workflow and process is. I wish everyone had the similar process. And then based off of that, we align with your overall goals of what you're trying to achieve. And then we supplement what you have with what we are able to do. So what I mean by that is, if we start noticing you have a great sales team, but they don't know how to manage their CRM properly, and then in addition to that, they tell you they do cold outreach, but then when you look at it, they're doing it all wrong. We will take over those components of it and say, hey, they're great once they get on a call, but let us take care of the whole sourcing, fixing the CRM component up, and doing the actual outreach side of it. That's just one playbook, by the way. And in addition to that, there's others. We do things like what you're doing now, which is podcasts, right? So building thought leadership, building authority. We do webinars as well, and we look at webinars as a joint partnership, but we also look at it as a way of nurturing MQLs that are not SQLs. So when you start getting a bunch of MQLs and you don't know how to take them to make them, if they're going to become an SQL for you, we start inviting them to different webinars, to different areas that they can learn from. Most of the times they will either register or they will attend, and then we have different playbooks for that. We have different playbooks for when they register and they don't attend, when they attend and they're engaged, when they attend and don't ask any questions. How do you handle each one of those?
Hamlet, there's very few of our listeners are marketing executives. Tell us a little bit about the difference between MQL and SQL.
Sure. MQL is a marketing qualified lead. And how that's determined is, who your customers are. You know who ideally you want to be able to target, right? Your ICP, your ideal customer persona. And MQL fits exactly that definition. However, they're not ready to buy from you today. And SQL is, they are active in the market and they are looking for a solution. So sometimes when you get on a sales call with somebody, you are obviously trying to figure out if it's an MQL, right? Your first job as a salesperson is, hey, does this person fit who normally buys from me, right? Do they have the same demographic information that I typically need? And then once you figure that out, then your next line of questioning typically is, can I help them? Or if I'm a service business, what I offer and what I put into the marketplace, does it actually solve a problem that they have today? Are they aware of that problem? They might not even be aware of it. So if they're not aware of it, am I educating them on something new that they didn't know about? So that might take a little bit longer. But if they're actually actively aware of the problem and they're looking for a solution, then that's a real SQL. And then how does my service or how does my product actually solve that for them?
Well, Hamlet, one of the things that we're dealing with right now is 2 years ago, we literally couldn't take on the amount of business we had, right? I mean, it was just so much, and I kept hiring people to support it. Right now, the demand has decreased, which makes sense because when they post the job, they get hundreds of applicants. But the one thing that our clients know that a lot of companies don't know is, it's funny you mentioned they're not aware of their problem, is they're actually interviewing and considering pretty average candidates. Only 1 out of 10 web applicant is an A player, and people don't think it. And I'm really being very nice, right? These people are the ones that were laid off, and yes, there's incredible people that were laid off, but it's rare, right? And so part of the education for us is, of course, you don't think you need us because you have hundreds of applicants, but who's taking the time out of their day to look through those and interview them and re-interview them? And so that's the one thing we have to educate them on. You are not getting the best people. They might look good on paper, they might be free, but what's your time worth? 1, 2, are you really, really tapped into the best people in the market? Rarely are these people applying. They might be unemployed for a very short time, and they're connecting with us first, and they're done, right? We introduce them to 3 companies, they choose one, they're done. So that's the education part that I never thought of until you brought it up,
Yeah, and I think a part of also what you guys offer that they probably don't see is if you really understand the culture of the organization and the gap that they have within their own company, where you know how certain leaders are, how they lead, what is the right candidate, even if they both might be great, what is the right candidate that once they join that company is going to thrive more, right? Because it's a good fit culturally as well. And sometimes it's hard when you're actually hiring yourself. It's hard for you. You have biases. You are only looking for certain things. You are liking the people you like because of what you've learned. But when a third person is doing that for you and it's doing it through your lens and your best benefit, obviously you can generate the better results.
You're dead on. Hamlet, this is a funny story. I was part of a Vistage or YPO group, and I was complaining about some of the challenges I was having with a team, and they're like, wait a minute. You're the best recruiting firm in the industry. How are you having issues? I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, well, the truth is, man, I'm not willing to or find the time to do what I would do for you as the client. It's like, what do you mean? Well, what do you do that doesn't work? You post and pray, right? And you hire whatever comes to you that's available, that's decent, that's okay. I headhunt for you. I contact people that aren't looking for jobs, grab their attention. When I say I mean my team.
Yeah.
I don't do that for myself, right? Which is a shortcut. We don't have time. So what do? We post jobs. And yeah, we've been lucky a handful of times in the 10, 15 years doing this, right? The rest of the hires were through headhunting, or it was through a referral or something like that. In fact, funny stories. I will use a recruiting firm to hire great recruiters for me, which is hilarious. And in fact, I have a call next week with one. As long as they do a great job, I'm happy to pay a fee if I'm going to get someone phenomenal that I couldn't get on my own. So people don't think about those things, I thought that was funny. Let's talk about scaling startups and what potential, what are the strategies you would work with them, and what are the growth levers you would focus on during those early stages?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, it's what we try to do is build a growth engine. So, and what we're really looking for is a predictable way that if you put whatever energy, capital, resources, people into a specific repeatable process, it will generate the results you need. And the results typically are leads, and then from leads, obviously, to customers, and then from customers, hopefully, to referrals. And that's what we zone in on. And depending on where they are, okay? So if they're pre-seed, they haven't really raised yet a significant amount, we're actually trying to figure out, are they working on the right problem? And we do that through customer discovery process, where we get them in front of 10, 15, 20, 25 people a month, where they're actually having interviews and they're really trying to learn what is the real problem that they're trying to solve for. If they've now raised, let's say, their first round, and these days it's anywhere between $750,000 to about $2 million, they're now trying to build what's called their first growth engine. And here we come and we're trying to, this is where we step in, is we're helping them figure out how do they have a scalable strategy. We evaluate all the different channels that they potentially can do, from Facebook to Google to, whatever it might be. We zone in and figure exactly what it is. And we build out a repeatable growth engine that will have the right type of metrics that they need and that will scale them up to at least $1 million a year. And that's the first major milestone that they need to get to. And then once we get to that phase, then what we need to do is we need to either expand into offering new services for them. So meaning that the customer bought A, but we can also sell them B. 2, find new customer segments for them, or 3, find new channels. And it's usually a combination of 1 or 2 of those things, if not maybe all 3. And the goal now is to get them from that $1 million a year to $10 million. But at this point, they've also raised additional capital. So they've raised anywhere between $8 million and $12 million.
And there's probably a Series A.
Series A, correct.
They're ready to step on it. Have you ever been in a scenario where you've helped a startup actually pivot, where you say, hey, I don't think you found product market fit, we need to pivot?
Yes. So it's happened numerous times. It happened specifically with Camino, which I shared about earlier, is we were initially a broker service. We were basically finding loan products and we were finding different people who had different loans. And unfortunately, every client we were bringing in was our ICP. So it was literally first generation, Latino business owners that had moved into the US. That was a family-owned business, that was cash-based, that was maybe doing on books 250,000 a year, but in reality doing $500,000 to $800,000 a year. So there was a cash component of it that wasn't being recorded correctly. And we knew they were capable of taking out the right loan in order to be able to scale their business, either buy more equipment or hire and so on and so forth. But everyone we would go to show them this, they would say, no, this is not someone we want to lend to. So what we ended up doing is we took the equity capital that we had received from investors, went and talked to our investors themselves and said, hey, we're willing to put our own money that we just raised with you at risk to lend to them. We ended up putting close to $1 million of the equity that we had raised. We offered business loans to them, and we proved it out. So that huge pivot we made, which was going from being a broker to a direct lender, was the path that led us to success.
Talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
So huge success. And so they proved to be credit-worthy folks that on the surface maybe, I don't know, the credit's not great. These aren't, they can't pay it back, right? That kind of a concept.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stories about that, specifically in the Latino business world, right? Let's talk a little bit about marketing versus product-led growth. There's always a balance that needs to be struck between those product development and marketing. Like, how do you determine where to focus first when entering into a new market or new industry?
So PLG, right, product-led growth, really applies to businesses that are self-serve and really are targeting, at least what we've learned, targeting consumers that are going to be spending maybe $50, $80, $20, $100 a month on a recurring basis, or some element of that. And the reason I say that is when you start going above that, when you're starting to hit the $400, $500, $1,000, you can try to do PLG, but it ain't going to work. Like, you really now are a mixture of MLG, marketing-led growth, and SLG, sales-led growth. Because now you're starting to sell a bigger ticket, and you need to really educate and teach what your product is and really help define and figure out what the value creation moment for your customer is and what pain point you're starting to solve for them. So that's just a general high rule to kind of keep in mind. Now, how do you figure that out? It's really what you're solving. At the core of it, if you get all this bullshit out of the way, sorry for using that, but it's really, what is the pain point that you're really, really solving? If you focus in on that, and sometimes it makes it super clear for you, and what is the value creation that's creating for your customer, right? So, for example, if I'm selling $1,000 a month SaaS product, I better be generating at least $8,000 to $10,000 a month in value creation for that $1,000. And how would I do that? Okay. How would I do that if I'm selling a $1,000 a month product? Am I replacing, this is just one simple example, two people that I would have been paying salaries of 15 to 20,000? Then yes, you could clearly show a value creation, right? Instead of spending $15,000 for these two resources, spend $1,000 with us, and we will be able to do this whatever the software is doing. That's one simple replace. Another one is actual revenue generation. If you're spending $1,000 a month with me, can I show you how much revenue I'm generating for you? Meaning, hey, you're spending $1,000 a month here, but the tool unlocks $20,000, $50,000, $10,000 in new revenue that you cannot do without this tool in place. That also keeps your product in line. Okay, so when you go higher up in your monthly selling, you really need to show huge value creation, so it's almost like a no-brainer, and that's going to limit overall the churn. When you're lower, you're looking for quick, fast, simple, easy, and you really want to be, so like if you're $50 a month or $25 a month or $80 a month, what you're really trying to showcase is, hey, I can be up and running for you in seconds. I can automatically solve this particular problem that you have, and I can show you how easily I can integrate with whatever tools or software or everything else that you're using.
Got it. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about AI in growth marketing, right? Obviously, it's a topic. It's revolutionizing so many different industries. How do you see AI and machine learning impacting growth marketing over the next few years, both for a customer like me and also your own agency?
Oh man, this is the cornerstone of our agency, by the way. So let me kind of give you how much we are a proponents of AI and where we kind of see it. So about 4 years ago, and if you know your OpenAI API timeline, you know that's roughly in June is when they opened up their APIs. That's when we, as well as an agency, started playing with it. So now if you fast forward to today, everyone in our company uses an AI tool, if not multiple AI tools within any one of their work streams that they do. We have gone through and provide multiple webinars. So if you go to our website, azariangrowthagency.com, you can go to our webinar section, and we've broken down everything from LLM models, how they work, how they actually are used. And in this particular webinar, I was teaching my 6-year-old at that time how to use ChatGPT and trying to explain to him how LLMs work. And I shared with the world how I taught him about LLMs and so on and so forth. We've gone through and broken down how AI overviews for those people who want to future-proof their SEO strategy. We demystified all the Google patents. This is a hobby of mine. I've been reading Google patents since 2000. It's my fun weekend reading. I know I'm nerding out in front of you right now. So I go through and I show the relevant Google patents that came out related to AI overviews and how you need to actually utilize them and be able to rank in them. And one of our other ones, we talk about Facebook, and we show how to properly use Mid-Journey to start creating ads, so your Facebook campaigns, and how the Facebook algorithm works. And another one, we talk about Google's algorithm, how that works. We break down content creation, how to properly create user personas, brand voice, and how to scale up content creation so it doesn't sound like AI, so it actually sounds like you, coming from you, and making all elements of that. We show deep fakes and video generation, how to actually create virtual avatars of yourself so you can build those out. And our most recent one, which we did for both San Francisco Tech Week and LA Tech Week, we discuss about all the different tools available in the marketplace. And more importantly, the next wave, which we love, it's called agentic AI, where it's basically you create different bots and variations of either you, yourself, your team, your workflow, your processes, and how overall that's going to start impacting and really giving you boosts as well too.
Wow. That's huge. Hamlet, why do most marketing strategies don't work? Why is it that most are just a waste of time and effort and money?
The ones that I think don't work is that when you kind of are just, so if you talk about traditional marketing, is when you think you know what should work. So, and what I mean by that is the market will always surprise you. So overcome that, and then I know we were talking about a little bit about biases earlier in the hiring process. That also applies in overall in marketing as well, is what you really need to start doing is you need to start looking at it as an experiment. It's no longer, is this going to work or not work? It's, hey, I have $100,000 a month, hopefully one day to spend, right, as you scale up. But I today only have $5,000 or $10,000 a month. And that $5,000 or $10,000 a month, if I'm super focused in one particular thing, what are the most important lessons I can learn? And how quickly can I learn those lessons? And what is that going to unlock for me? And you kind of go through this iterative cycle of looking at the data, coming up with different hypotheses, running small micro experiments, and from those little micro experiments, learning something that works and going through this process. If you're failing 98% of the time, you're doing it right. And I know that's crazy to sound, right? So if you're failing 98% of the time, that means you're running enough micro experiments that you're quickly learning what's going to work. When you find those 2% of experiments that work, you're stepping on the gas as fast as you can. Like you literally are, you're in a hot streak in blackjack in Vegas, right? The cards look good for you. You're gonna double down, double down. You got about 7 hands before it runs out, so you better win as much as you can. So it's a similar philosophy. You gotta really step on it when it works, and eventually it's gonna hit a plateau where it's not gonna work. And what you've now learned is your growth curve. So you've learned how much this particular campaign can work, how fast can you scale it, and how many people you can reach. And then when it reaches that plateau, it's going to come down a little bit, but now your new marketing budget is going to subside. It's going to go from $10,000 a month to, let's say, $40,000 or $50,000 a month. But out of that 50,000, 40 of it, you already have a proven campaign that you know that you can run month in and month out from, probably for the next 2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
So the focus isn't on the 98% of, oh my God, what a waste. 98% of this stuff didn't work. It's, hey, wait, we got 2% that worked. Let's go crazy on going there, right?
Right. And well, the 98% teaches you what not to do, right? You learn quickly what the value proposition that resonates. You quickly learn what messaging that works. You learn what offer that works, what targeting that works. All of these variables that you're testing, it's a way of testing called multi-arm bandit, where you're testing a bunch of different variables all simultaneously at the same time to figure out which combination actually works, and that's the one that you go really deep in.
Huge. Is SEO even going to be a thing in 2, 3, 4 years?
Oh my God,
Our website's going to be a thing.
Yes, they are going to be a thing. It's what I think is going to change, and I love this question a lot because I hear it so many times a day, but I will kind of explain where it's headed. So in the past, SEO, by the way, SEO continues to be a thing, has been a thing 20-something years, are we going to be interacting in a chat format with something else? Probably, most likely. So a fraction of us will kind of move and answer basic questions. And in one of the webinars, I actually showed that how companies like Stack Overflow and Reddit started getting really affected by this. But Google search didn't. Search continued to be prominent because some of the search results that it provides are still very timely and relevant. So what I think is going to change is we are going to go away from providing the basic information and how to do this, or the top 20 companies that do this, right? So these really old versions of SEO hacks will die. They will go away because that's something an LLM model can easily answer. What is going to become much more relevant is your own personal experience, your own personal expertise, right? So this is called EAT, why you're an authority. So, do you have a podcast? Are you meeting and interviewing a bunch of different people? Are you being invited to go be a speaker at a conference? Are you, all of those authority and your trustworthiness? Who is actually talking about you? So the traditional brand building elements of how you would build a business are going to become much more important. And thought leadership is going to go to a whole new phase. It took me personally a long time to even want to speak publicly. I was always the guy behind the scenes, and I love that. I love being the guy that no one knew what he was doing, but everyone who knew, right? So for me to have personally gone through that transformation is I saw where all this was headed, obviously in the patents, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. And I started experimenting that with a few of our clients, and we saw the immediate impact it started having. So I knew that then when we went through our own rebranding as an agency, we needed to really shift focus and really focus on thought leadership.
It's really interesting. There's a kind of a misconception of folks that are thought leaders that are speaking at events. I think the thought is these people want attention, right? But if you really think about it, you do it for two reasons. One, you do it to drive business to your organization, to feed your team, and then feed your family. And number two is to give back to the community. So for a guy like you, who sounds like you, I don't know if you're an introvert or extrovert, doesn't matter. You kind of like being behind the scenes, as many people do. But you figured out that, look, the writing's on the wall. To grow, we have to become a thought leader, but we have to show it. Right? It's not about what you know. It's about the scale that you can show that you know it. Is that
Right.
about right?
Exactly. And the value you create, right? And you give a lot of it away. And I think a lot of what people sometimes struggle with, like for us, like the thought leadership component, there is obviously a huge impact that it's helping us get new clients, get the right employees, build overall awareness of who we are. Those are all incredible benefits. But there's also the other benefits of it. It actually helps you refine what you actually know, right? So what I mean by that, it because you're giving so much away, you are forcing yourself to constantly be learning. You can't give the same thing away for 10 years. You have to evolve. And meaning like what I share every month in our Growth Labs webinar, for example, is the latest techniques that we're doing. Like in an upcoming one, we're going to talk about, signal-based cold outreach, which I started already sharing with you. Why am I sharing that with you? It's the most modern thing that's happening in the category. It literally, this wasn't capable, or this techniques were not doable last year. That's how modern this is. And we're already playing with it. We're already doing it. And if you ask me this question a year from now, I'd be like, yeah, signal-based techniques, yeah, that's old news already. We've already moved on to the next.
And these things existed manually for many, many, many years. The
Many
stuff
years.
you described in our industry, that's exactly what we would do. It's like, oh, Hamlet left and become the head of growth at Google, but he left eHarmony, so there's a spot there. That's weird. We used to work with eHarmony. Let's hit them up. But you can't do it at a scale, especially with a small team, right?
Right.
And I think the new sexy versus having 1,000 employees and raising $100 million is doing the most with the least, right?
Yes.
And so that's why it's extremely important. Hamlet, one of the fears people have is you give away so much knowledge. Well, why do people need you? I mean, I know the answer. I'm sitting here taking notes from all this stuff because I'm not a marketing guy, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm just going to say, you know what? I just want to hand this over to Hamlet. This is too much for me to ingest, to pass on to my marketing team. Frankly, I wouldn't do it at the expert level. So it's easier and better and probably more efficient monetarily to just hand it over to a great agency. What are your thoughts on that? Like, I'm afraid to give away my trade secrets. I mean, if you ever talk to an attorney, they don't want to give anything away because that's their stock and trade.
Yeah. That takes a while to overcome. I think that's just a general misconception, right, that people have. And for me, at least what I believe is what I'm telling you right now, it's already old news by tomorrow. Meaning in my viewpoint of how I think, right? So even though I shared with you the most latest, greatest things, it doesn't matter to me because already by tomorrow, at the sheer that we run experiments at with the clients that we have, there's no way you can be learning at the same velocity and at the same pace that we do, right? We have a culmination of history of running accounts and running tests and our lab is just bigger. And the reason you would want to work for us and you would want to do that, obviously, is if you want to run it, great. Here it is. This is the playbook. Go run it. But you need to still manage it. You need to still refine it. You need to still optimize it. And then in the process of you setting it up, I'm sure the first thing you're going to say is, and think, am I doing this right? Am I doing it correctly? Or am I doing it right? Wouldn't it be much easier to know that I have a team that learned it, runs it, optimize it, and is going to show me the next phase of how to do it?
Many years ago, Hamlet, when I built some real estate. And so when I used to build, I used to be the general contractor, right? Hey, I get to save money. After doing it about 3 times, I said, no, thank you. Here it is. I handed it to a general contractor, gave him my vision, and that was it. From architectural design to blueprint to get out of my way. I'll check in once, every week or two to make sure we're on track. But I think that's kind of where it is, right? Yes, you can do everything, but once you get past that small mom and pop stage of your business, you need to hand things over to experts, whether it's internal or external, right?
Right. And the key is finding external that feels internal. So if you're able to do that, right? If you're able to find a consultant that is 60%, 70% dedicated to your account, that's amazing. Or if you're able to find a growth agency that feels like they're part of your team and they understand exactly what your goals are and where you're headed, even better. What you're not looking for is specialized services where you're one of many, right? You don't want to be a part of, hey, they're managing 20 accounts. How much do they really know what's going on in our business?
Well, yeah, if done improperly, this is a commodity and anyone can do it. That's why you got to go to the best. Leave us with one lesson for companies looking to 10x their businesses.
So I think one of the biggest challenges, at least I've noticed with a lot of founders, is be open to knowing what you think you know and what you really don't know. What I mean by that is one of the common trait I've seen from most of the most successful founders I've had or worked with is their mindset. How open they are to failing, how fast that they fail, and how quickly do they use that as a learning step for them to quickly understand what's working, what's not working, has been generally the definition of success. Also, the other thing I've noticed is how well they balance themselves, what their gaps are. So if a gap for them is sales, they hire the best salesperson. If their gap for them is engineering, they hire the best CTO. If their gap for them is marketing, they hire the best growth person. If they're, whatever their gap might be, they surround themselves with the right talent that can allow them to really focus on what they're really great at, which is really understanding the vision and how does their company overall disrupt the current status quo, and how are they able to quickly scale and go from nothing to $100 million a year business.
Delegate and elevate, right, Hamlet? Do what you're great at, delegate everything else. How do people find you and your organization?
So you can find me at our site at azariangrowthagency.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Hamlet Azarian. Those are the 2 best ways to get a hold of me.
That's awesome, man. You've been great. I've learned a ton. I could tell by the notes I took. Let's definitely stay in touch. Really appreciate you being here, man. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, brother. And that brings us to the end of another great episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. I want to thank you for joining us and hope you took away some valuable insights to apply in your professional journey. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss out on the next great conversation. I promise it'll be good. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also help others discover the podcast. Better leaders mean better working environments. Better working environments leads to happier people. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm Avetis Antaplyan, and this has been the Tech Leaders Playbook. Keep leading, keep learning, keep giving, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay inspired, my friends.